The first time Jacob Hale saw the little girl in the wheelchair, she was staring at the ocean as if it had stolen something from her. The wind rolled across the cold California shoreline, carrying salt and distant thunder, while expensive black SUVs lined the parking area behind the private rehabilitation center. Wealthy families entered through glass doors guarded by security and silence, but the child remained outside, motionless beneath a gray blanket. Her thin hands rested on her lap, and despite the wealth surrounding her, there was a loneliness about her that felt heavier than the wheelchair itself. Before this story begins, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe kindness and second chances still have the power to change lives. Stories like this remind us that miracles sometimes arrive through ordinary people. Jacob had not come to the center for money, recognition, or sympathy. He was simply a single father trying to survive. At 38, life had already taken more from him than he believed possible. 3 years earlier, his wife Emily had died after a sudden illness that moved through their lives like a storm. No doctor could stop. Since then, Jacob had been raising their 8-year-old son Noah alone while working maintenance jobs, wherever he could find them. Bills sat stacked on his kitchen table like accusations. Some nights he skipped dinner, so Noah would never know how close they lived to losing their apartment. But grief had done something unusual to Jacob. Instead of making him bitter, it made him softer toward pain. He noticed suffering quickly because he carried so much of it himself. The rehabilitation center hired him for temporary maintenance work after a coastal storm damaged parts of the property. The pay was modest, but he needed every dollar. That morning, while repairing outdoor railings, Jacob noticed the girl again. She could not have been older than 10. Her wheelchair faced the sea. A nurse stood nearby checking messages, while the girl remained completely still. Jacob learned her name later, Sophia Bennett, and her father was one of the richest men in the country. Ethan Bennett owned medical companies, luxury hotels, and technology firms, whose names filled business magazines and financial television programs. People described him as brilliant, disciplined, and impossible to impress. His success built empires, but success could not save his daughter. Sophia had suffered neurological damage after a devastating accident 2 years earlier. The injury left her partially paralyzed and emotionally withdrawn. Doctors around the world had examined her. Specialists recommended therapies costing more than most families earned in decades. Nothing brought meaningful improvement. Money had purchased treatment. It had not purchased hope. Jacob noticed something else over the next few days. Sophia never smiled. Not once. She sat by the ocean for hours, watching waves crash against rocks while adults around her spoke in careful medical language. And every afternoon, a woman arrived, Sophia's mother. Victoria Bennett looked elegant in a way magazines admired. Yet beneath the designer clothes and composed expression lived exhaustion so deep, it seemed stitched into her face. She greeted doctors politely, reviewed treatment notes, and sat beside her daughter with quiet devotion. But Jacob saw what others missed. The woman was breaking apart. One afternoon, while replacing damaged fencing near the garden path, Jacob heard laughter. Real laughter. It startled him. He turned. Noah had come after school to wait for him and was tossing pebbles toward a puddle while making ridiculous sound effects. Somehow, he had wandered close enough to Sophia to catch her attention. The girl watched him. Noah waved. Jacob expected the nurse to stop him, but before anyone intervened, Noah picked up a small stick and began pretending it was a pirate sword. His dramatic performance was terrible, wildly exaggerated, and entirely sincere. And then something remarkable happened. Sophia smiled. It was small, brief, almost invisible. But it happened. Jacob felt his chest tighten. The nurse looked stunned. Sophia quickly lowered her gaze, as if embarrassed by her own reaction. That evening, Victoria approached Jacob for the first time. She thanked him for allowing Noah to play nearby and admitted it had been months since Sophia showed interest in anyone her age. Her voice remained calm, yet the gratitude sounded painfully genuine. Jacob simply shrugged and said children sometimes reached places adults could not. The next day, Noah asked if Sophia could watch him build sandcastles. Then he asked if she wanted to judge his professional architecture. And somehow, without planning it, a routine formed. Jacob worked. Noah played. Sophia watched. At first, she remained distant. Then, she began bringing drawing paper. Then she started waiting for Noah. The rehabilitation staff noticed the change. So did Victoria. But Ethan Bennett remained skeptical. Jacob met him one rainy evening. The billionaire arrived directly from the airport, surrounded by assistants and tension. He moved through the facility like someone accustomed to control and allergic to uncertainty. His expensive coat still carried rainwater when Victoria quietly told him about Noah and Jacob. Ethan's eyes landed on Jacob. The look was not cruel, just guarded. Jacob understood immediately. Wealth taught people to question motives. And a struggling maintenance worker befriending a billionaire's daughter probably looked suspicious. Ethan thanked him politely but kept emotional distance. Jacob did not blame him. He returned to work. Days passed. Then one afternoon changed everything. Noah had brought an old kite. The coastal wind was fierce, perfect for flying. Sophia watched from her wheelchair, while Noah struggled dramatically with tangled string. Eventually, he begged Jacob for help. As Jacob untangled the mess, he noticed Sophia staring at the kite. Not casually, longingly. He asked if she wanted to hold the reel. The nurse hesitated. Victoria looked uncertain, but Sophia gave the smallest nod. Jacob carefully placed the reel into her hands. The wind pulled, the kite lifted, and for several unforgettable seconds, something awakened inside the girl. Her eyes widened. The string vibrated against her fingers. The kite climbed higher. Then Jacob noticed movement. Tiny, barely visible. Sophia's weakened hand tightened. The nurse gasped. Victoria covered her mouth. The motion was slight, yet undeniable. For 2 years, Sophia struggled with controlled movement in that hand. Now it responded, not because of pressure, not because of machines, but because she cared. The moment shattered Victoria. Tears streamed down her face before she could stop them. She knelt beside her daughter and wept quietly, while Sophia continued watching the sky. That night, doctors reviewed reports with cautious excitement. They warned against unrealistic expectations, explaining that emotional stimulation sometimes activated neurological responses. But to Victoria, it felt like witnessing sunlight after endless winter. Ethan remained careful. He wanted evidence, certainty. Yet, even he could not deny the change. Over the following weeks, Jacob and Noah became unexpected fixtures at the center. Noah introduced games. Jacob repaired things and listened. Sophia slowly emerged from silence. She began drawing again, mostly oceans, sometimes kites. Occasionally, she drew Jacob and Noah. The medical team observed measurable progress. Not dramatic enough for headlines, but real, improved responsiveness. Better emotional engagement, increased motor effort, and something else, hope. But hope is fragile. One evening, Jacob received devastating news. The company employing him was downsizing. His temporary position ended immediately. Without income, rent would become impossible. He drove home in silence while Noah slept in the passenger seat, clutching a broken toy truck. That night, Jacob sat alone in darkness, staring at unpaid bills and wondering how many more disappointments one heart could survive. He decided not to tell the Bennetts. Their lives were not his responsibility. The next morning, he quietly prepared to leave the center. Sophia noticed first. Children often sense endings before adults admit them. When Jacob explained that his work was finished, her face emptied of color. She did not cry. She simply looked toward the ocean again, and that hurt more. Victoria learned the truth later from staff. The realization unsettled her deeply. By evening, Ethan asked to meet Jacob privately. The billionaire surprised him. There were no assistants, no rehearsed speeches, only a tired father sitting across from another father. Ethan confessed something he rarely admitted. For 2 years, he had tried to solve Sophia's suffering the same way he solved business problems, with money, specialists, and control. Yet, despite his resources, he felt powerless watching his daughter disappear emotionally. Then Jacob and Noah arrived, and something changed that science alone could not explain. Not magic, not fantasy. Connection, human warmth. Ethan admitted he had judged Jacob unfairly. Then, he offered him permanent work, managing maintenance across several Bennett properties, including benefits and stable income. Jacob sat speechless. The offer felt unreal, but Ethan was not finished. He said the position was deserved, not charity, because sometimes the people who repair broken buildings also repair broken hearts. Jacob accepted with trembling gratitude. Life improved slowly afterward, not perfectly, but steadily. Noah gained stability. Jacob slept without constant panic, and Sophia continued progressing. Months later, during a charity event hosted by Ethan's foundation, guests filled a grand ballroom overlooking the ocean. Cameras flashed while donors praised innovation and medical advancement. But the most important moment came quietly. Sophia arrived beside her mother, still supported, still healing, yet stronger. And then, with careful determination, she stood briefly using assisted support while holding Victoria's hands. The ballroom fell silent. Victoria broke down completely. Not the restrained tears of polite society. Not elegant sadness. These were the tears of a mother who had spent years grieving a future she feared was lost. She held her daughter and cried openly, while guests watched through wet eyes. Jacob stood near the back with Noah, trying not to draw attention. Sophia looked across the room and smiled directly at them. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. Your support keeps stories of compassion and hope alive for others who may need them most. And before this story ends, tell us in the comments, have you ever seen kindness change someone's life in a way no one expected? Later that evening, after guests departed and the ocean reflected moonlight across the glass windows, Victoria found Jacob standing alone. She thanked him, but words seemed too small. Because the truth was larger than therapy charts or medical reports. Jacob had not cured Sophia. He had given something even more powerful. He gave her reason to reach toward life again. And perhaps that was the miracle all along. The world often celebrates wealth, power, and achievement, but some of the greatest miracles begin quietly through patience, compassion, and people who choose kindness even while carrying wounds of their own. Jacob arrived at the rehabilitation center as a struggling single father trying to survive. He left as proof that broken people can still become healing hands for others. And somewhere beyond the ballroom windows, the ocean kept moving beneath the stars, carrying away sorrow while leaving hope behind.